Welcome, everybody, to the first edition of the year of Valpo Basketball Weekly with the head coach of the Valpo women's basketball program, Mary Evans, as we get set for the start of the Valpo women's season this week. Valpo Basketball Weekly is brought to you by our friends at Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute. Well, Coach, let's look back at last season. Such an unusual year during a pandemic and a return to competition, but not having fans and so many protocols in place. What were some of the challenges of that year, and what do you take away from last season that you bring with you into this season?
There were so many challenges. I think the biggest challenge was just trying to make sure that we could provide an experience for our players as close to normal as possible, and just try to help them through the whole situation. Obviously, it was tough on everyone. Um, Being kind of isolated and away from each other, that was very different than in the past. Travel and all that kind of stuff was very different. But, I think we tried to make the best of our situation. We tried to do as much as we could to stay connected. It's a little bit more normal. There's still some things out there, but for the most part, we're back to some normalcy. And excited to get back on the court with fans in the stands and be able to continue to build upon what we're doing in this program right now.
And both your scrimmages this year were behind closed doors, different from some years where there's one exhibition game and fans get a chance to look at the team. So I think a lot of fans are curious as to what to expect. How would you assess the performance in practice, the performance in those scrimmages, and just what should fans expect from your team going into this season?
Yeah, I think they were both very good. I think they both served a purpose. They were both against other Division One teams, and so I think our first one went a little bit better than the second one. But for me, fight through, and we weren't going into a season feeling a little bit too confident. So I think both teams that we played against, one had a little bit more of a post presence to it, so we got to kind of see what that looked like, how we were going to be able to guard against some pretty good post players in their conference, and I thought our team did a good job collectively keeping those kids in check. The second team we played against kind of threw some different things at us, a little bit more guard oriented and exposed some areas. So I think that was good for us to see, because I do think these first couple games, especially our first two MAC opponents, are guard dominant. And I think we've got to be able to do a better job collectively stopping those guards from getting to the rim and scoring and creating for others. So I thought both of them were really, really good for us, and have helped us get ready as we look into Wednesday's game at Miami of Ohio.
You talked about guards on opposing teams, but let's talk about one of yours.
Yeah.
Frederick led the league in assists a year ago, sixth in scoring in the Valley last season. How has she continued to develop, and what are your expectations for Shay going into this year?
I think our expectations are really high for her. I think she finally kind of showed some of the things that she can really do last year more consistently. I think she's always showed glimpses of greatness ever since her sophomore year, but I thought she was probably the most consistent she had been in her career last year. And so I look forward to continue to build on that, to come out during games and look to be an impact earlier in those games, not only getting her teammates involved, but also looking for her own shot, and looking for her own scoring opportunities. So, I've been really happy with her. She's a tremendous worker. She's constantly in the gym, constantly getting shots up. And I think she's grown a little bit as a leader as well. But I think, for her off season, and the big part of our off season this year was getting stronger. And I think, she put on some good weight and muscle. And I think I'm looking forward to seeing how that helps her as she gets to the rim, be able to take some of the bumps that our conference, the physicality of our conference provides, and seeing her finish through some of that stuff. So I'm really excited for her going into this season.
You talked about the physicality of the conference. Before you get to conference play, let's talk about your non-conference slate. You haven't shied away from facing challenging opponents in your time as the head coach. What can you tell us about the schedule that you've put together for this season?
Yeah, I think it's one that's going to really challenge us. It's going to challenge us early. We open up against two MAC opponents. I think the MAC is another, along with the Missouri Valley, is one of those other mid-majors conferences that's consistently ranked in the top 10 and is one of those top mid-major conferences in the country. So, we're opening up the door with Miami of Ohio and Central at home. Central obviously has been dominating the MAC and finishing in that top two of the MAC for the last, I don't know, I feel like forever since I was back there. So those are going to be really good early tests for us. We had the ability to go up to Michigan State, play another Big Ten opponent. I think they're going to provide a unique experience for us. They've got another really good guard in Winston. They're usually big and strong. So I think that's, going to help us kind of get ready for our conference as well. But we really tried to challenge them. We had some games coming back that we had to cancel last year. But our trip out to South Dakota was strictly to try to let us, get an early look at what playing one of the top tiered teams in our conference is going to look like in an environment that's similar to some of the environments we face on the road. So, I think when we go out there in December and we play that game, we'll have an idea what it's going to feel like to go to Missouri State, what it's going to feel like to go to Drake, UNI, some of those places, and play against that level of competition. So, I think that we will be 100% prepared when Valley play rolls around at the beginning of the year.
Let's look ahead to this week. And you touched on the two MAC opponents that you'll face right out of the gate. What are some keys to these games? What will you look for as far as assessing your team or keys to victory this week?
Yeah, it's early in the season and there's not a lot of information on either one of these teams. We'll have one game on Central Michigan before we play them on Sunday. We have no games against Miami. They had an exhibition. We've got a box score. They graduated a lot. Their roster looks vastly different than it did last year. But they've got one of the best players in the MAC back in Peyton Scott. And so, we've got to be ready to try to keep her under control. I don't know if that's possible, but we've got to try to do our best job to make her baskets tough. I think we've got to limit easy baskets for her. And I'm familiar with the guard that had a good game for them in the exhibition, Ivy Wolf, through the recruiting process. She's a very talented point guard. So my feeling is that they're going to be a little bit more guard oriented than post oriented. But I mean, we've got to prepare for both. We've got to prepare to play our principles and kind of stick to our principles through these first couple games. We don't have a lot of information on them. So we've got to come out and just do what Valpo does. We've got to execute our offense the way we know we can. We've got to go in and play defense with our principles. We've got to box out. We've got to control tempo and do those kinds of things. And hopefully that'll lead to us being victorious at the end of it.
There she is, the head coach of the Valpo women's basketball program, Mary Evans. Again, the season opens this week on Wednesday night. Hope to see everyone out at the Arc. For ticket information, valpoathletics.com/tickets. You can follow Valpo Athletics on social media and always check out the latest in Valpo women's basketball on valpoathletics.com. This has been Valpo Basketball Weekly, and it's brought to you by Lakeshore Bone and Joint Institute.